So it's more the MacGyver of the building of the hotel. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like an awesome place to book.
Yeah.
So if there's something wrong with the room, you get like a room service guy come up with some duct tape and say good luck with that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we'll bring a paper clip up and you can fix it yourself.
Perfect. Deb, you look like a woman that needs a luxury hotel in her life. What would be your theme? Although it feels like I might be able to guess.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be great to just have we could have dogs and cats, and we could have llamas bring through like a platter just to start off guests, like welcoming them in the foyer. But yeah, I think just the Great Escape would be great at the moment, just to live in the lap of luxury and have some grapes fed to me.
Yeah, guys, those guys joining us now, you're in the right place. This is ProductTank Brisbane, and we're just having a quick banter before we kick off in a couple of minutes. So make sure you log on to the YouTube chat so you can ask us some questions coming up. We're just chatting with the panelists today and with the crew at Canstar. And I wanted to ask the guys, what's been some of the most fun and embarrassing remote working situations they've encountered lately? Anyone volunteering?
Well, I've only had 3 days work from home because we actually opened a new office right through COVID. So my window of opportunity is actually pretty small.
Oh, that's a shame. So no one's leaving their mic on inappropriately?
Oh, there was the Zoom meeting issues that everyone sort of has, but we had a grand opening with just me here, which was pretty strange.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all at it. You know, I'm going to admit I have tracksuit pants on. I'm just going to own it right now, and that's my uniform for at-home work. I suspect footwear might be varied as well for those of us still working at home.
Go on,
Lauren. What do you got on your shirt? What have you got on your feet? Go on, Lauren. Show us what's on your feet.
Show us your business attire.
Well, being stuck in Victoria for the last 6 weeks, I've had to really embody the Victorian way, and to keep myself warm, I've got the moccasins.
Oh, nice.
Do they have
Nice heels.
I got one, Deb. Actually, just for my days out in the small country town.
Nice. Well, we might get started with some intros. So I'm going to drop a few of our panel. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone for the minute, and then they'll come back up for our panel. So just bear with me a second. Hey everyone, so welcome to ProductTank, growing a marketplace. I know you're all just logging in at the moment, but I just wanted to introduce us to you, particularly for a lot of first timers that we've had joining us for ProductTank this year. So this ProductTank is our roadshow, and we're being hosted by Canstar. So ProductTank is a global organization, and we're in over 200 cities. So there's chapters in over 200 cities. So we do welcome people from other chapters across the world and across the region. We have over 200,000 people engaged in our events, and they're for a variety of people. So people that build product, have an interest in product, market products like myself. And my name's Louise Flynn. I'm one of the organizers here for ProductTank Brisbane, and I'm a product marketer. That's kind of what flavor I am. We do also have, for those looking for some regular brain food, ProductTank has a lot of, ProductTank is always free as a service, but we do also have a Mind the Product membership for those, some great topics and some content around the world that'll give you those insights into product. Currently, we're also running a survey, which I'll pop the link in for, just asking you how you're going through all this COVID-19 stuff. We would love to run a few more activities focused on what you need from us. So it's a great opportunity for you to give us feedback if you'd like us to have some content outside of product that might help you either build, take your next step in your workplace or your consultancy if you're looking to make a change at the moment. You can also join our discussion on Slack at mindtheproduct.slack.com and join our area, which is Brisbane. Thanks again for joining us, for those joining us. And for those guys with their calendars handy, our next stop on the roadshow is Genie Solutions, which is a great practice management software. It'll again be a lunchtime event, so it's perfect for your workday to come in and join your team and kind of come and contribute. So we'll be online again and a noon event. So lock that in your calendar for August 25. So as I said, we are back on the road virtually again. And thankfully, we found a home at Canstar for this next event. So it'd be great to take the opportunity to meet Canstar and to hear about how they've built their business. I'm just going to bring up two of the Canstar product team, Patrice Dodd, who's the product development manager, and Lauren Jane, who's the, just bear with me 1 second. And apologies for that. Patrice Dodd from who's the product development manager, and Lauren Jane, who's a product owner there. Thanks, guys, for hosting us and for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So I'm just going to bring up your presentation and drop off myself. And feel free to, and then we'll do some Q&A at the back end of the presentation.
Great. Thanks, Louise and the product crew. Today, myself and Lauren are going to be talking about growing a marketplace in the context of Canstar. I've been with the business for 2 years as the product development manager on the B2B side of the business. I was hired to reinvigorate this side of the business. Our agenda for today, part 1, is getting on the same page when it comes to marketplace business models. What are we defining as a marketplace? We'll then go into the context of Canstar, its history and growth, and then our two-sided customer focus. Because it's a ProductTank group, we will go through the product team structure and process, and then we'll finish on the future of the marketplace for Canstar. So, part 1. What is a marketplace? Well, a marketplace is a proprietary platform that connects buyers and sellers online. On the one side, you have buyers, and in the context of Canstar, we call these consumers, and they are looking for a product. On the other side of our marketplace, we have clients, aka sellers, and they're looking for a customer. On our proprietary platform, we solve both of these clients and consumers' problems. On the consumer side, we solve their problem by helping them make the right decision with confidence, saving time and money. We solve the client's problem by helping them acquire new customers cost effectively. But building a marketplace is like building two companies simultaneously, each dependent on the other. This phenomenon is otherwise known as the chicken and the egg. You need both buyers and sellers, but where do you start when you have neither of these? Which side do you build out first? The more sellers you can attract, the greater value you can provide to your customers. Higher value leads to more buyers, which in turn increase the value for sellers, and that's why it's self-fulfilling. It's a community of interest with a commercial dimension. The marketplace becomes the trusted intermediary, vetting sellers and creating the best possible experience for buyers. So how does this all fit into the context of Canstar? So before I continue about where we started and where we are today, I wanted to be quite clear on the two websites we have. So we have canstar.com.au, or otherwise known internally as Canstar Gold. And this is our financial comparison website, where we compare over 30 plus categories. And we do this via our proprietary ratings methodology. So we have a group of analysts who sit in a closed-off room, so they're completely impartial. They look at all the products in the financial services category, compare them in a particular category against each other, and rate them out of 5 stars. So obviously, the top performing products are the 5-star products. On the Canstar Blue side, so canstarblue.com.au, we compare everything in and around the home. Over 170 categories, including energy and telco. Honestly, I keep on finding a new category in there every day. And the way that we rate or compare the products in this website on Canstar View is slightly different because it's all about consumer satisfaction. So we go out to a panel of consumers, we ask them what brand they have in a particular category and how satisfied they are with that brand. The top performing score out of all the brands in that category receives a 5-star, and then it goes down from there, with 1 being the lowest rating. Canstar has evolved from a research house into a high-growth digital company. We were founded back in 1992, which a lot of you probably don't realise. We were founded by a man named Andrew Willink, who came back from Canada to Australia with a joint venture with a company called Kennex. Some of you may be old enough to remember the Kennex days. And it was a business in annuities. Now, like today, annuities aren't really big in the market, and that was the case back in 1992 as well. So we had to find a different business. So what did we do? We went out to all the different branches, we sent our little gophers out, and they wrote down the comparison rate and the interest rate of home loans. They collated this information on 1 sheet of paper and then faxed it out to all the other brands. And this was a way of all the banking brands pricing according to market. We got a bit more sophisticated with that, and we ended up having a platform and expanding into other banking verticals other than home loans. And then in 2000, we realised, well, got this really great database of all this product information. We could actually rate the products in the market. And so in 2000, when we introduced our star ratings. In 2008, we expanded into the categories, super, life and insurance. And then in 2010, we launched Canstar Blue. And when we say Canstar Blue, we mean it in terms of the satisfaction ratings. Where we really saw the growth of our business, and it's no surprise it's following the market trend, is when we launched Gold Digital in 2015, and then Blue Digital in 2017. So our history is built on a long history of B2B partnerships. This is where we started the business, and it has enabled us to grow it into what it is today. We built the brand and consumer awareness through a B2B2C approach. Another famous example of this is actually Microsoft. After decades of B2B sales, they moved into B2C, and Canstar isn't too dissimilar. Canstar has strong brand awareness based on years of ratings research and third-party endorsement. And this was critical to growing our trusted brand through our product research. Our clients also helped us grow our brand while growing their own by including our logo in the form of an award on their advertising, and you can see 2 examples here. We became known to consumers as experts in product ratings and reviews. This was critical when growing our comparison site, as we were already known in the market, and therefore were able to leverage this to attract traffic, which is key in marketplace business models. So Lauren now is going to continue on Canstar's 2-sided focus and what that means for us in terms of products and services.
Thanks, Patrice. As mentioned earlier, I'm Lauren and I'm a product owner here at Canstar. And I too have been at the company for 2 years, and I've learned a lot about how successful 2-sided marketplaces operates. And while I was doing some further research, I came across an industry leader in building and actually funding successful 2-sided marketplaces, and that's Simon Rothman. If you haven't seen any of his videos or work, I highly recommend it. Simon is a VC for Greylock in Silicon Valley, but most notably, an early pioneer at eBay. And I wanted to look at Canstar in the reflection of the #1 thing he looks at when investing in marketplaces: what is broken and how the business is fixing it. Let's have a look at the broken marketplace. If anyone has ever tried to do any sort of market research in their role, you will know firsthand it is easier to have one central, credible source than to go scooting all over the internet and chasing your tail. And back in the day when Canstar started in 1992, accessing data was pretty hard. Having a centralized and credible source was near impossible. Canstar created a suite of products to help us solve the user problem. And as Patrice mentioned, Canstar's management of huge amounts of data, plus the methodology and rating system, soon became the credible, central source of information for the Australian financial institutions. Even the Reserve Bank looked at Canstar to benchmark. With the trust and confidence of the products confirmed, Canstar was able to solve a massive problem for the key decision makers at those institutions. Canstar made research easy. Canstar made benchmarking easy. And then it only made sense to leverage this trust and credibility and apply that strategy to general consumers, because that market was broken as well. And it wasn't just strategy that underpinned the success, it was actually our product development. And Canstar had the B2B side sorted. And it wasn't until the website came along that we really opened up for the consumer market and evidently more products. That was really the game changer for Canstar to become the successful two-sided marketplace it is today. So with the reputation and relationships in the industry and now a website to connect with consumers, we can take the time to look under the hood of the products that help support Canstar's growth. And I'll start on this slide with the website in the middle, but I'll move to the left, which is the B2B side, and then I'll move over to the right, which is the B2C side. Starting with the OG Canstar product, we have the awards and rating licenses. As mentioned earlier, the Canstar rating system is designed to help customers easily and confidently compare the products that are right for them. Our comparison rating balances price and features to get an overall value, which then we convert to a number of stars, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And if you've won a Canstar award, you are able to purchase a license to use our logo to add integrity to your brand or product. Next, we have the Canstar View, another OG product that is the inventory of data for our industry players. As someone in the financial industry, you can get a subscription to Canstar View and have industry data at your fingertips. Something similar would be CoreLogic for the real estate industry. And like any website with lots of eyes on them, there is an advertising inventory, supported by our Insights product to give our advertisers reliable campaign insights. So moving to the right to our B2C, Canstar's comparison service is essential in building the B2C arm of the brand. To throw out some big numbers, Canstar now compares something like over 16,000 products from more than 250 financial institutions across 40 different categories. Essentially, it's massive. And as a user, you may want to keep track of these products on your journey or personalize your experience. And that's where we have developed a user account area and our user tools to help you get your credit score or to help you check your home loan or to assess your risk appetite for your super. So we're going to need a team to run all this, right? So how did the team grow over the years? The growth that Canstar has experienced that meant what originally started as a digital team has evolved into a pretty solid product team. The early days of the digital team, like most growing functions, it was a pretty reactive play, and this is common at this stage. And I'm sure most of us have worked in small business or startup where you just need to keep moving to keep growing, and especially when there's only 2 of you. Fast forward a couple of years to around 2017, and the team has grown to 6, and there's a bit more structure being established. UX and design optimization team members are being added, and more formal processes are being established, like the implementation of Jira. As the company grew, there was also more resources to put back into the business and back in to develop the team professionally and structurally. And this brings us to 2020. And there are 12 of us in the team, and we have definitely moved to a more sophisticated way of operating. And I want to highlight 3 key factors that have solidified this. The first moment that I witnessed that was so pivotal, it was so simple and so incredibly powerful, was the implementation of Gherkin story writing. It seemed so basic, but it was a complete game changer. Previously, there was an ambiguous way of us communicating with the developers, which means a lot of back and forth, defining goals, and quite frankly, headaches on both sides. The implementation of this simplified our communication tenfold and dramatically impacted team velocity. The second was formalising our incident reporting process and, more broadly, our process documentation as a whole. For example, when an incident occurred, there was no real guidelines around what actually defined an incident, so there was often hesitation in even raising it. Having a consensus around what defined an incident meant that team members were more likely to raise issues when they previously wouldn't have. It also meant that team members could identify it before an investigation was required, often saving developer resources. This was fiercely advocated by the amazing leadership of our product manager and delivery manager. And third, what again seems so obvious but is often missed in a company that scales so fast, is advocating for the user. Over the last 12 months, I have seen the growth of our conversion rate optimization team that run amazing experiments and the implementation of listening tools. This signifying a shift from being a reactive digital team to a proactive product team, centering the user and the user experience. And this is also reflected at Canstar, where people like Patrice are focused on reinvigorating the B2B side with a user focus. She has done incredible work rolling out design thinking workshops, design sprints, and prototyping products with the commercial team who may not have been as familiar with the product development process. So, what is the future of the Canstar marketplace?
Hi, I've just popped up because I'm going to get Patrice to take herself off mute.
Sorry, everyone.
No, that's
I just
okay.
realised that myself.
So go back a little bit.
Can you lip read? So starting again on this slide, apologies. So Canstar's vision is to be the leading digital intermediary in finance and to win the game in key consumer products like telco and energy. So what do we need to do this? So we need to create stickier consumers and clients. And that's similar to any marketplace business model. So on the consumer side, what this looks like for us is we need to deepen the relationships with consumers to further encourage repeat visitation and usage. And Lauren mentioned a bit of the strategy around that in having like a dedicated spot for users to go. And you can see how, that can lead us to stickier clients and stickier consumers in the future. And then on the client side, we need to have deeper integration with clients to streamline the consumer experience and product offers and making them more sticky towards us and more dependent on us. So without further ado, I think, Louise, we have a little bit of time for Q&A if anything's come through in relation to Canstar business model.
Sure, guys. So just putting it out to the community, obviously Canstar's given us a lot to have a think about there, but any questions popping up at the moment for Canstar? Not seeing anything on the feed, but we might have some. Okay, well, we might loop back to Q&A at the end because I think we're going to bring up a whole lot of other interesting topics after the panel. So thank you so much, Canstar. And I'm just going to rearrange the screen to bring up our next section. Move myself on there. Great. So thanks so much, everyone. Now, I think the Canstar presentation has given us a real insight into the complexity of marketplaces and certainly giving you a perspective that not all marketplaces is just about travel and food. We've been able to we've been able to ask 3 amazing innovators from marketplaces as diverse as pets through to machinery and creative content to come and join us today. So I'm going to introduce them bring them up onto the screen, and then introduce them so you can put that in context with, just bear with me a second. It looks like it's a little bit slow at the moment. There we go. Okay, here we go. That was an adventure. So if you please welcome to ProductTank Brisbane, our panelists for today. Deb Morrison is the CEO and founder of PetCloud, so petcloud.com.au for those wanting to follow along at home. It's a national Australian pet care services marketplace with hundreds of thousands of travelling customers and police-checked and insured home-based pet carers. They've had investment from scale investors, Green Costs and RSPCA Queensland. So welcome, Deb.
Thank you.
And I'm going to welcome our second. That's hilarious. My story just popped up. Scott Thomas is the co-founder of Creatively Squared, and this is a really interesting marketplace for someone who's a marketer. It allows global brands to access high-quality, cost-effective digital content from the Creatively Squared community of content creators. Scott has a really amazing background. It's a focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. So before jumping into business, he was entrepreneur in resident at Slingshot and a consultant for both EY and Era Innovation.
Right,
And
thanks,
rounding out our panel, a marketplace that I swear I've followed for years now, because I was in heavy machinery once back in the day before software. Welcome to the panel, Matt Peters, who's the co-founder and COO of iSeekPlant.com.au, Australia's largest online construction marketplace. It launched 8 years ago and has attracted investment from Macquarie, the Seven Group, and the Queensland Investment Council.
Hi, Brian.
With a background as a business analyst, he's been building this business from just himself and a small team to over 50 staff today, drawing on both business and technical skills. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Woo! Thanks, Louise.
Cool. So thanks so much for joining us. And obviously our objective today is help inform the product developers and marketers of the future about your experience, your hands-on, gritty, behind the scenes experience of building marketplaces. And not just the ones that we see on the TV, the Ubers and the Airbnbs, but these amazing marketplaces that give the opportunity for businesses to create relationships or for consumers to find a local supplier. So I wanted to kick off and talk a little bit about your understanding of the previous style. So all of you have created marketplaces and essentially replaced a transaction in your different industries. And I wonder how understanding that transaction helped you build your product. I want to talk to you, maybe Deb, you can open the floor about how understanding as a pet owner yourself, how that was and how that informed building a marketplace.
Yeah, thanks, Louise. So basically for pet owners at the time when I came to building PetCloud, there was nothing like it that existed, and it was stressful. I had to travel interstate for work, and I think at the time either people just didn't travel or they had a family and social network that they could rely on. And at the time I didn't have any neighbours in my neighbourhood. I just moved to a new home, and so I couldn't find anyone to look after my pets, and I had to actually go through a process of eventually finding a flyer in my local neighbourhood, and also tried out the experience of a kennel, and that was not a positive experience. But after speaking to a fair amount of people, like you said, it's in the early days, it is quite a gritty, involved process of really getting involved with interviewing other pet owners, going and stalking them at dog parks, and going chatting to them about what they did if they couldn't find care. And yeah, essentially we've taken what was a cottage industry and people maybe asking a friend or a neighbour, or, you know, dare I say Gumtree, to actually commercialising care and helping people understand the actual standard of care that the RSPCA expects. And it's been a real eye-opener, and it's understanding how people feel about their pets. And it's not just a dog, it's actually got a name and it's their fur baby. And so the level of due diligence is similar to that with a nanny and a child. So that level of interview.
Great. Matt, probably coming at it from a different angle. You weren't originally from the industry that the user was in, but your founders had quite, and you've had to develop an understanding of how people do business in that heavy machinery equipment hire process.
Yeah, so I guess that gives me a good appreciation for the process for new starters that I see planned and the education process they need to go through. But so I had a couple of co-founders and now project managers from the sector. So they had the sort of acute understanding of the problem. And the problem was really about trying to procure plant machinery for projects around Australia. So if you think about, you know, doing a kicking off a project in Wollongbar, for example, you're probably flying in from Sydney or Melbourne, and you're trying to find local providers. You're used to using companies in Sydney and Melbourne. Sometimes local providers aren't available. People turn the machinery over all the time, so what's in their fleet is constantly changing. What's available in their fleet is constantly changing as well. So we were kind of replacing, I guess, folders of business cards, and I guess a few companies that did focus on Google search, some of the bigger players. So you could look for grade or higher in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and find the same company, for example, which was just a Brisbane company. So
right. So you've learned a lot. So there was a lot of different alternatives to kind of understand how that transaction work and bring that into the product.
Yeah, and you kind of need to understand, okay, well, so what's the problem we're seeking to solve here? And essentially we're trying to get everyone in the sector on one central place so that you can I guess quickly categorize everyone and say, okay, I need a 30-ton excavator with a rock breaker on it. I want it wet hire with an operator, and I want it in Logan, for example. So that's quite a nuanced search to have to go through. And prior to IC Plant, I guess a company that might have that would simply advertise in yellow pages under plant hire. So, you know, bringing everyone in and categorising everyone is sort of a big part of the challenge that we're seeking to solve. Sure.
And Scott, you're coming at this probably from a more emergent demand or emergent market with the advent of businesses really needing kind of strong social media feeds and content and high caliber content. So this kind of emergent trend that you guys have been able to kind of leverage into a marketplace.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out exactly what we're doing, to be honest. It's the thing that's enabled our marketplace to grow, I suppose, is the mobile phone advent. So before you had to have a $30,000 camera and all the skills, and now anybody can take a good picture. It's more about having an eye for something that looks good rather than expensive equipment. So forming a community of people that do that well around the world, and then kind of making it pretty easy to connect with them, whether they are in Australia, the US, or it doesn't matter what country they're in. So yeah, it is sort of emergent, but I think anybody's got the potential to be a talented content creator now. And that's what we're trying to enable around the world.
Sure. So so in building the marketplace, each of you have built a marketplace. It feels like because the processes that you were replacing in terms of building the product and the marketplaces were so different from what the online experience was, you've kind of had to build in education or guidance for each side of the demand and the supply side of the marketplaces. And I want to talk to you a bit about that and how certain elements of your product reflect the fact that you have to guide and educate. Matt, I'm wondering if you could help us, because you've got a really interesting supply side, as you said, that were just guys that kind of jumped in utes and met with people face to face or advertised on Google. And this seems quite different to them. How have you shaped the product to kind of really understand where they were coming from and bring the marketplace to them?
I'd say it's a combination of like the internal team and also the product. So there's a good chunk of our audience that just isn't really very computer literate at all. So we have to do like a lot of hand holding. They're guys who are really great on site. They know machines very well. They can do the job great. But when it comes to I guess, the business side of things, the smaller businesses can sometimes struggle with some of these things and still be, operating facts, don't answer emails, sort of simplistic stuff. So for those guys, I guess we've kind of done it the old-fashioned way in some respects, and we've driven around the country and we've gone and seen all these people, and we've been taking photos with their phone for them and showing them how to log in in front of them, sort of manually. So there's been that personal aspect, and we've taken that further, and I guess COVID-19 has made us pretty much stay here and do that remotely 100% at the moment. But we do have a customer success team that's been quite instrumental in getting the guys through. Okay, you've gone through our sales process. Now it's time to make sure that your experience post investment is rock solid and is something that leaves you with a good taste in your mouth.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting kind of balance between trying to put everything into the platform and then listening to the user and understand that you kind of have to meet them halfway, and that might be a non-technical solution like customer success, like a process
with some technical sort of spin-offs as well, like having chat tools and just making it really easy for them to interact with you in whatever way that they find. So we've got lots of alerts built into the system that basically sort of say, hey, talk to this guy, or this guy's got a question, or lots of different ways that they can communicate and reach out to us through wherever they stumble upon it. So that's part of it. But I think as well, from a product perspective, simplicity is key. Really simple, clear registration funnels, really simple, clear back-end navigation. The sort of iPhone example, I guess, or the iPod, very simple in design, but and that really took off. So like we recently just did a back-end redesign on where our suppliers log in, and we saw like a 2x increase in time and a huge increase in I guess the amount of engagement back there and the amount of logins as well. So and that was because basically we just removed all the stuff that we thought was kind of cool but not critical. So simplicity for us has been, I guess, a key learning. So.
And Scott, you've got quite a challenge because you're building a community to make a supply side where whenever your brands request resources and request someone to do work for them, you are doing a lot of work with people that are coming at content creation potentially not from a full-time or a full-time kind of basis. So you've got a part of your community that are kind of learning how to be business people in this industry.
Yep, pretty much. I'd say 3/4 of the creators we work with around the world have never worked for a brand before. They don't realize the value they can add in terms of what they're creating. So we've got one side of the market who are used to 50 to 100 page PowerPoint decks that go off to an agency and 15 calls before they start a photo shoot. And then we've got the other side who have never worked with a brand before. So that translation part in the middle is one of the big value adds. So sort of coaching and understanding our market and sort of get them away from the long-winded briefs into something short and sharp, and then translating that into something that the average person on the street can understand to create something great. That's the challenge for us.
And is that informed part of the product, particularly translating what would have been a quite long, detailed briefing process into something that could be briefed to your account manager quickly and then onto a content creator?
Yeah, well, I suppose we were kind of fortunate that we didn't have any engineers or product people in the team for the first 2 years. So I quickly learned that your customers don't care about your product. Sorry, all the product people, but they care about their problems. So we didn't build anything. Our early stage MVP was a Typeform and a Squarespace site and a whole heap of Zapier and Airtable, plugging it all together. But it looked innovative compared to what an agency looks like. So for $100 a month, you've got something that looks like it's from, it's quite innovative. So that kind of helped us spend a lot of time understanding what the product needed to look like before we built it. And now that we do have a product and a platform in the market, it's very simple. It solves one problem. It doesn't have bells and whistles. And the onboarding calls, because our customers expect onboarding calls, being enterprise customers, are literally, here's how to log in, here's the button to submit a brief. And they kind of jump off after 5 minutes. Oh, is that it? And that's kind of, I think to Matt's point before, that simplicity and knowing exactly what needs to be in there and what doesn't took a lot of time before we started building.
And that's kind of an interesting path that you have as kind of a newer marketplace, is that you probably have more access to the intermediate technologies where you didn't have to build straight away. You could use existing technologies, run integrations and build the customer experience and actually trial it live before you went and put money into code and things like that.
Yeah, that's kind of a rule here. Don't build anything unless it really, really, really hurts. Because it's the worst. As soon as you do that, you've got to keep it up to date. You've got to maintain it, provide support. It's just a money pit. Whereas I guarantee you there'll be somewhere around the world who's decided that this is my passion and I'm building a SaaS platform to solve this one little particular issue for this industry. So let them go and build the solution and just leverage it. So pulling all those resources together is more important than building things yourself these days, I think.
Yeah, we're very much at the same sort of mindset here. If we can plug something in and have someone else maintain it and pay a subscription fee for it, then fantastic.
Yeah, and just to add to that point, the first thing that we look at is how to get out of it too. So when we add a new piece of software, the first thing before we sign up is how do we remove this if we need to switch to another one or if it's not working, so you don't get locked in.
Absolutely. Deb, you had an interesting challenge because your relationship with RSPCA really changed, or added to your thinking in terms of how you were going to position the market or the importance or the value you had to add in the transaction. So it would have been interesting to work with pet sitters that were casual people who, took a local pet in and didn't really think about safety and different other things. Was it an education process to kind of work with the pet sitters and with the owners to kind of share that they should expect that sort of level of service?
Yeah, that's right. So it was a process of balancing compliance along with conversion rate optimization on the site and teaching people who hadn't done pet sitting before about the professional standard of pet sitting. So we created a course with the help of a senior vet of the RSPCA, and then also we did workshops with their senior inspectors and dog trainers and vets and foster carers to understand what are some of the risks that could happen, and we worked that into our onboarding process. And then also we involved a concierge throughout our booking flow.
Bear with a second.
Are you okay, Louise? Don't think she can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
We've just got a little bit of an audio dropout as far as I can tell. Just bear with us 1 second. Oh, we can hear you. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Deb.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So so basically we worked with, had some workshops with some senior experts at the RSPCA to help us de-risk the process of onboarding a pet owner versus pet sitter, and just to reduce the risk of harm to pets in holiday care and escape, and also helping pet sitters ask the right questions, because not one pet is the same to a different type of pet. You know, they might have a special needs pet with that needs care around the clock to have its bottom wiped, or it needs to have injections, or it can't handle stairs, or it has separation anxiety, or it might be a tiny puppy that can squeeze out little holes in the fence, or just loves to dig and try and escape. So there is a big difference.
Thanks so much, Deb. Now, I wanted to talk to Scott and Matt. It's a little bit, as someone who's a B2B specialist, I'm fascinated with the fact that so many emergent marketplaces are more matching two businesses together, whether they're small business owners to large businesses. And I'm wondering how you think it's different when you've got two businesses on either side of the platform. Scott, maybe you can talk about how the expectations of how global brands work, and when people are kind of, you know, they're both trying to make money or save money.
Yeah, I think the most challenging part for us being a B2B, almost three-sided marketplace, is that there's not many successful B2B marketplaces to point to where you can kind of learn from. Whereas B2C, if you've got millions of users on each side, there's lots of material on what to do and how to optimize that. But if one side of your marketplace is sort of dozens of customers, not hundreds or thousands, there's no point sort of focusing on analytics. It's not going to help you in terms of changing the color of a button or something to see if it works if there's only 10 people logging in each month. So there's not much material out there in regards of sort of how to do that well. So we've had to figure it out on the fly. That's probably been the biggest challenge. B2B marketplace is still relatively new. I think people forget that the people working businesses are still people, so they're used to using these platforms outside of work, but inside of work, it's still very, very unfamiliar. So things from, you know, payment, it's all going to be done by invoices offline in most cases, rather than trying to build it into the platform. You know, all these things that are sort of still relatively new. So we're trying to sort of figure that out on the fly, but it is an emergent area, which makes it exciting too, because you're always having to learn.
And Matt, with your product experience, you've got two business owners, you know, obviously one trying to be able to secure hire to run their project, and one who's obviously trying to make money. Does that change the way you communicate with them within the product, or the prompts that you have?
A little bit, but the fundamentals are still the same. So at the end of the day, they're just people. So make a product that a person will like and use.
The interesting part of iSeek Plant is how complex a request is, rather than sort of, I want an excavator for this date. They can ask for a whole lot of other services attached. And how have you been able to kind of address that in the marketplace?
Well, I guess it's we kind of looked for how is it being done at the moment, and if you look at, like, since we launched, someone will probably have a crack at doing something similar to us somewhere in the world about every 6 months. And typically they seem to gravitate, certainly in the US, towards clip the ticket models, where the transaction occurs on the platform and you try to retain a percentage of that. And that in some sectors of earth moving is a model that does exist offline right now, in a broker format. So it does have some merit, but the complexity of the transaction, when you're talking about hiring a machine, you need to know duration, stand down rates. You need to know who's paying for fuel. What about maintenance? What about mobilisation? Who's organising that? Where's the drop-off gate? Weed and seed certifications, safety compliance. The list goes on and on. It's actually quite a lot to get a machine to site, and in a lot of cases, you're trying to use the same customers. So today, and from a product perspective, we need to enable voice on there, and we need to be able to track that, and we need to be able to prove those transactions occurred without actually, I guess, taking the transaction itself. I think the other thing that we're constantly mindful of is the fact that there are it's people's livelihoods at stake. So you need to have some commercial awareness about what information might be sensitive. So, for example, things like a job notice board might make sense initially, but if somebody's got a tender out and they're looking for machinery for that tender, and all of a sudden you put their request or requirements up on a job notice board, they might have a whole bunch of competitors come in and bid against them. So, which could have more than just an annoying customer on your hands or user. It could have commercial implications for us at Plane as well. So you need to be aware of all of those impacts. And even, I guess, in the more sophisticated side for our business, we speak to telematic, the sort of GPS and on the machines itself, so we can tell where the machines are in a lot of instances. And before we launch that, and that's so that we can have a more valid search result. So rather than just looking purely at depot locations, we're looking at actual machine locations as well, and also potentially machine use. Before we launched that, we actually went out and road tested it with some pretty savvy guys in the hire space and tried to see if they could reverse engineer where their machines were, because we knew that would be something that would be really sensitive to them. If you could see that XYZ Hires machines were all sitting on this job site in Logan, and you're a competitor, then you might go and try to see if there's any way in there. So just that commercial awareness is the thing to be mindful of. There's people's livelihoods at stake. So.
Absolutely. So building a product that kind of really understands the sensibilities of that. So on to one of my favourite topics, which is metrics. Deb, I know that you guys have been working really hard to kind of, to really kind of be data driven and pull the data out of. Can you talk a little bit about your journey about how you kind of bring data and metrics into the way you build your product?
Yeah, sure. So data is incredibly important to us, and for marketplaces, the more granular, the better, and the more real time, the better. And so we're always looking at our CAC, which is cost of customer acquisition, the annual revenue run rate, lifetime value of customers. So always trying to increase that lifetime value. And also repeat and recurring bookings is incredibly important to us. And so we currently use Power BI, which we've found pretty great to help us get very granular with all of the postcodes across Australia and also all the services that we offer.
Great. You're probably coming at this, Scott, from a slightly different angle because, obviously it's a quite small market, but what are the indicators that you see within the product or within the business that you kind of use as indicators, of success?
Yeah, so the key ones for us is the time to create a confirmation. So how long does it take from when we receive a brief to locking in who's going to work on that project? And often that could be a new market. It could be if we need people who specialize in food and drink in Vietnam quickly. So it's not so much the size of the marketplace. People don't really care. You could say we've got 10 million creators. So what? It's how quickly do they get their results. So that's the number one metric we look at on that side of the market is the time to locking in who's going to work on the brief. And then on the customer side, it's kind of similar to what Deb said. Ours is net revenue retention. So making sure that the customers we do keep are increasing their spend with us and at least very minimum replacing any customers that we lose.
Really interesting. Matt, how are your teams using metrics?
So similar to the other guys, probably first and foremost, we look at revenue and as an indicator of success, and that's the end result we're shooting for. That typically trails success in other metrics though, and I guess more specifically, we're looking at recurring revenue for our business model, which is subscription based. So I guess one thing that's probably a little bit different to us is we need to have a really detailed understanding of subscription based metrics. So that's a big part of it. one of the more interesting ones that we've been looking at lately that we think sort of summarises a few core issues in one metric is this concept of connections, which looks at how many inquiries are going through the platform, but how many of those are actually being responded to, and how many responses are they getting, because we want to get as much work going through the platform as possible, and unique work and repeat work, of course, but you need to make sure that they're getting a sufficient level of response to those inquiries. So in construction, this sort of standard is that they'll need 3 quotes for a larger sort of procurement process to occur. So you try to get close to that and make sure that the user is getting what they want in a timely fashion. But that's kind of summarises, I guess, some user metrics and supplier metrics both in one. Then, of course, we've got analytics and just looking at general traffic and conversion, as all marketplaces have to. And then we break up our audiences into users as well, and suppliers, and we look at specific metrics for each of those. On the users, we're looking for repeat users, returning users. We're looking for the number of inquiries going through the platform. We're trying to make sure that those inquiries are getting sent out to just a big enough group of people so that the user gets a response and doesn't get accosted, and so that our suppliers aren't getting, I guess, the person with the lowest rate sort of wins, and it's a race to the bottom. We're very aware that we don't want to have the people who are paying us to be doing unprofitable jobs. So there's the user metrics and supply metrics about engagement and responses, profile health, like how completed their profiles, and all of those sorts of things that might give them a churn.
So it seems like there's a balance between the metrics that we can kind of see in SaaS, the metrics that you can see in a business, and some marketplace specific metrics, and potentially even metrics you've had to build all of your, for each of your models to kind of be able to see what good is, or those key indicators that, like Scott, where you said that you were tracking the time, and I'm assuming that's because jobs tend to kind of fall apart if you're not able to complete the request quickly, the buyer drops out of the market, or that process becomes problematic. So it seems like there's a layer of metrics where you can read about metrics, but there's also just understanding the business and kind of setting what good is as well. I feel like that this is a great opportunity potentially to get you guys to share a key takeaway, and it could be something that you're reading or someone that you're following, but also maybe just something that you just tell someone who's approaching you and saying, okay, I'm about to join a marketplace, or I'm about to build a marketplace. What would be that kind of key takeaway that you'd want to leave with them if they didn't remember anything else? Deb, have you got something to share? Either a resource or a message?
Yeah, just I found Andrew Chen's blogs super helpful, but unless you really have your analytics and tracking, and your data is clean and trackable, and you've got those funnels set up, it can be like building in the dark. So I would suggest that you really need to become intimate with your numbers.
Stay focused on the numbers. Yeah, for those following along, we'll share the link, but Andrew Chen from Andreessen Horowitz is a great source of kind of marketplaces, emergent marketplaces. Scott, is there something that you've kind of read, or just something that you'd want to share with anyone jumping into the marketplace business?
I think Andrew Chen's great. I think Point 9 Capital are doing a lot of great work with B2B marketplaces at the moment. They're from Berlin. So that's something I definitely read. I think one of the biggest learnings I've got, and things I'd recommend, is if you're working in marketplaces, all the advice of being customer focused needs to go out the window. Because if you focus on one customer and screw the other one, because you have two customers, your marketplace will fall apart. And you see that even in the largest marketplaces, the Ubers and Airbnbs of the world, getting too focused on one side and seeing the revolt that starts to happen on the other side. So we see our goal as finding the optimal balance between our two customers, which means there's got to be trade-offs on both sides. And if you get that skew out of balance, then things start to become problematic. So I think that not being focused on one customer, that's the thing that I would recommend.
Yeah, so both sides, making sure that both sides of the market, you have presence and you're building both sides of the marketplace and the product and the experience for both sides, because you don't want your content creation community to feel like they're not hearing enough about new jobs happening, there's not enough activity around them in the same way that your global brands want to be treated really well and be able to see all the projects you're working on.
Yeah,
I think that's a really interesting point. Great. And Matt?
I would say approach with a very high degree of caution, because as the I don't know what the other guys' experience has been, but certainly from the research that we conducted, which was post starting the company, the building marketplace is a long road to hoe, and there's a lot of success stories out there, sure, but they look like overnight successes, and the overnight is actually 10, 15, 20 years. You can refer back to Canstar's chart. I was looking at that and just going, wow, look how long it took before they got their hockey stick. It's they are long and they are challenging. I'd also say that the people aspect is probably pretty critical. We've had success, I think, because of I guess the co-founders that I've been fortunate enough to work with. So we've all got a different skill set and kind of complement each other. Like some people are really strong in areas that I'm weak in. I'm strong in areas that they're weak in. So having a good team is probably key. And in terms of I guess knowing what to do, one of the things we do a lot here is look at what other people are doing. So we're constantly observing other marketplaces and looking for little things that might apply to our sector. And oftentimes you'll find people who are in a marketplace but not in your space. They'll be very willing to share information about what's been successful for them, because they're looking for information and quick wins as well.
Great. So I'm going to open the floor up and bring all our brains trust up so that we can, so I'm just going to bring up Lauren and bring up Patrice as well from Canstar, and open the floor. Sorry, we're just, okay, all our audio settled down. And run through a couple of questions that we've got from the crowd. So just bearing with me. Oh, okay. So Jason's jumped in early. That's what you get when you're an organizer. Product is about prioritizing. With a double-sided marketplace, you have the supply and the demand. Do you swap which side you show more love to over time, or does it stay the same? Deb, maybe you want to jump in on this?
They say the customer's always right, but you can have both subcontractors who are your customers and then your pet owners who are your customers as well, who are spending the money. So I think you need to show some appreciation to the people delivering the service, and some incentives to make them loyal, and then also show the impact to pet owners of and showing them where they spend their money does matter. So yeah.
Anyone else with some thoughts on that as well? Managing both sides. Go ahead, Patrice.
Sure. So I think in Canstar's instance, we've actually really focused on growing a customer base in the consumer sense. So bringing people to the website so that we can then say to our clients, well, we've got this amount of traffic coming to our website. You can convert this amount of people on your product. So for us, it was all about developing that really great customer experience on site. And that's where my role has come in the last 2 years. We've kind of gone, we haven't forgotten about the B2B guys, but we could provide a better service to them. So that's why I've come on to kind of re-energize that focus in that space. So I think, yeah, for us, it's been kind of, building the consumer side first before solidifying more services for the B2B.
Sure. And that's an interesting challenge, is it? You tend to build the side that you feel is easier depending on marketing or just the nature of the industry, but finding that balance is, is that kind of investment you make as you mature as well. Great. Well, we might look at the next question, and thanks so much for sending that in. Does the marketplace of your company focus on skill development and services for your customers? Scott, this is actually an interesting one that might apply to you, in that you've got people in your content community that have the ability to deliver this service, but probably didn't know they did.
Yeah, so we're very, very focused on community. Before we even started with the business, it was a community of content creators around the world for about 12 months before we thought this might be a business opportunity. So the strategy for us there is that we want to be able to provide value to the creator community, even if we weren't providing jobs to them. So we run lots of training, lots of tutorials. We're helping them upskill and get better. Hopefully they're going and finding their own work outside of us. So it's not sort of a retention. If we can help people that are talented creators earn money around the world, that's our kind of North Star metric. And some of our best creators have sort of graduated from working with us and started their own businesses, don't work with us anymore. We see that as success rather than a problem. So I think if you can separate your marketplace and create two sides where you're adding value, even if you're not matching the two, that makes it much easier to build in the long term, because you don't have to keep that balance in sync then. You can kind of treat them almost separately.
Yeah, I think this may also refer to how you build skill in your customers. And I'm wondering if the guys, one of the guys from Canstar, want to talk about, how you've been able to educate people to be able to shop for insurance, because it seems like quite a different process than what they would have used to been through.
Yeah, I'll take it. We have a really strong article and editorial of the business, and so bringing in experts that can write and guide the user into where they need to go, and the choice that the user makes will always be based on their own decision. But we do have a lot of supporting articles and educational resources that will allow the user to make the best decision for them as well. So that's probably where we shine in terms of educating the user.
One thing that we've seen in our business as well was because we track the voice recordings of the inquiries, that some of the larger companies will have maybe some more inexperienced people on the front desk manning the phones, and so how they deal with their inquiries at the front house, they've been using the recordings on our platform as in their toolbox meetings in the mornings to sort of say, okay, well, how could we have served that better? Because in a lot of instances, you'll hear somebody say, oh, I need a dozer for 2 weeks, and the answer will be no, we don't have one. When the person on the other end of the phone could have said, okay, well, what are you trying to achieve here? Maybe we could use a different machine, or is your time flexible? Do you need any other machines? Some of that's more sales skills. So we've seen a dramatic uplift in how our customers communicate as a result of sort of the transparency that the platform offers.
Sure. And I'll jump to, here we go. Thanks, Matt, for sending that in. How important was the sophistication of your nuanced search capability for the growth of the platform? That's probably an interesting one for you, Deb, because you are kind of hyper-local. So I'm wondering how that kind of getting a real picture of the exact search or the area really mattered for you to build out the search product.
Yeah, so every postcode you've got supply and demand, and yeah, just like the other guys have mentioned, the time to fill a job is incredibly important, and also the quality of the service provider who is doing the job as well, which is why all of our service providers are police checked and insured, and also we have an online training course that shows them the training that the RSPCA expects for the standard of care that they're providing. So yeah, incredibly important.
So is that something that once you've kind of educated the consumer that they could expect this, is that something that they can filter in terms of the options they've got? Because they get presented the search results from their postcode using their location, but is that something they can select between, or is they expect every supply that occurs in the search to have already been police checked, to have already been insured? That's just a guarantee.
So guaranteed 100%. Every single one of our sitters that have a listing on our site are all police checked and insured, because we don't want anyone going off and stealing someone's prized French bulldog. There's also pet sitters that enter the home of pet owners while they're away, and we want them all 100% police checked. So they 100% are. When it comes to the training, that is a nurturing process, and we charge for a training course. But we do feel that people value the course more as a result of them being charged a fee for it, because we found that when we did offer it for free, that it was treated differently and there wasn't as much take up, but we found we had more take up when there was a price attached to it.
Yeah, I'll take a step back to the question a little bit and probably open it to the floor. And I think we're talking about the kind of complexity of search. So when a consumer comes to one of your marketplaces, is there quite a complexity in the elements that they get to search? And I'll open that to the floor. Maybe Canstar's the better example of quite a nuanced search.
I can take that one again.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, part of my role is to build the tables, and a lot of what I do is actually work through how a user will search, because we do have a hub selector that a user has to go through the landing page. But also then you have the filtering and sort element that is on the comparison table as well. So I think there's a lot of research, and again, we use data to try and verify the sorts of user experiences. But yeah, we do try and build up that search to customize a user's journey to what they need to go and what they need to find themselves.
Okay, great. And I'm just wondering if we've got any other questions from the community. I did actually see someone that I'd love to, should have asked myself. Oh, here we go. There was one about, okay, here we go. So Airbnb obviously cuts out the middleman. So providing security in the transaction, what is your thoughts about providing security in the transaction versus looking commercially driven versus showing users trust? Where's the balance of that? I'm wondering where the best place to land that is. So so you've cut out the middleman, but you've got to build a marketplace, and how do you balance that with providing security, looking commercially driven, or showing the users trust? How much, where is there a scenario in your product where you hold data back from the user versus showing them everything?
We do that a lot. We kind of have to, because the leakage occurs off platform, as most marketplaces experience. So I guess in order to really prove for us ROI, we're trying to bring as much of the communication onto the platform as possible, and there's a couple of ways to do that. One is you can force the behaviour, but the other way as well, which you kind of got to find the balance, is also making it easier. Like, that's just an easier way for me to communicate, because it just works seamlessly. It's all in there for me. I can see all of the communication with this supplier, or this user. So we kind of do a combination of both, and looking at let's make it as easy as possible, but we do have to try to bring as much of the communication onto the platform. We we do things like blocking out phone numbers and website URLs from images automatically and things like that to make sure that we've had business cards and things like that up there, and they'll have stickers on the side of their truck with their phone number, and at the end of the year they'll say, I got nothing out of it, and you say, well, that's because all the images, they've got your phone number on, they're not using our platform. So we have to deal with each of those little issues and I guess find a balance.
Sure. And we've just got one last question. I thought that was that's a really interesting point about the where you keep the data and how you visualize it. And we've got one last question, which I know is just about to float up. Oh, here we go. This is I find a really interesting question, considering I've been talking to a couple of quite early stage marketplaces. You all, particularly Deb and Matt and Scott, there would have been a time where you knew you had something functional, that you had a critical mass. At what point did you start to, at what point did you release the, the market? How did you know that you would be able to, to function even at a small scale? Scott, maybe you want to talk about that a little bit?
I think for us, it wasn't so much a number, but there was a moment when we sold our first deal with Unilever in Singapore. So husband and wife team, no tech, no experience in the industry, has got one of the largest companies on earth to pay them in a foreign country. So that was kind of this must be a problem. That was kind of the moment for us. And then it kind of just went from there.
And then you've obviously built the product out as you've, initially you were kind of driving the matching process and going, if I can recruit this global brand, then I'll figure out who can supply it at the other end.
Yeah, quite. I think that's what's different about a managed marketplace. So we're becoming the trusted partner in the middle. They don't sift through profiles. We know that we're saving our customers time. I could give them a list of everyone that's on our books. They couldn't care less. They're not going to sit there. They'd have the Netflix problem. When you log on and you just sift through the menu for an hour and you haven't watched anything. Yeah. So, by coming to us, they can just say, I just need content that looks like this, go about their business after 10 minutes and we take care of the rest. The downside is that doesn't scale as quickly because you need people to manage that in the middle. The upside is your margin's more like 60, 70%, not 5, 10. So, that's kind of the trade-off. But the line in the sand is it's customers paying you. That's the moment that you had a function in marketplace. It's after that you just say yes and you figure out how to do it on the back end, and you just keep doing that until it grows and grows. And I think Matt might have made the point earlier that it's it's a 15, 20 year solution. It's not, you don't come up with a marketplace in a month or two.
Deb, how did you? Where were you guys at when you first launched?
Oh, well, I launched to a page of 5,000 people already prior to the website going live. So I had that base. And I didn't really know that was newsworthy or anything. So I sort of just went, push it out. We're now live. There was a lot of people just sharing it without even paying for a boosted post because at the time there was just nothing out there, and the fact that the RSPCA were involved was a really big endorsement for us. There was just there's a lot of people in the same boat who are just traveling and just can't find anyone.
Great. Any final thoughts, panelists? We're open floor in terms of thoughts and sharing and messages.
I suppose from our point of view on the same topic, where is that line? When do you feel like you've made it? I don't know. It just keeps going off into the ether for us, and you've got to look for early signs of success, because there's a lot of negative feedback in the early stages of the marketplace where you've just kind of got problems everywhere you look. So you got to look for what might be what are the success stories that you've got, and sort of celebrate those. only recent, it's probably only fairly recently that we've sort of got to a place where we're starting to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief after being in a compressed state for 8 years, 10 years. So, it's certainly been a long time. But to Scott's point, there's not a lot of research with regard to B2B marketplaces about like what success should look like. Some of the stuff that we found sort of set around sort of 30% year-on-year growth is where you should be trying to get to. And then, hopefully after year, you might find that does compound it, and you do get that uplift that you need to maintain the expense profile of a marketplace at scale. So, it's a long road.
Yeah, sure. Well, I wanted to thank you so much all for being part of this. Firstly, to Canstar for being our online hosts and being such a big part of driving our content for all of today. So thank you very much, Patrice, Lauren, and all the Canstar team. And thank you so much for Deb, Matt, and Scott, who all have great, interesting businesses to follow. We also will be sharing the fact that I Seek Plant at least are recruiting at the moment in some of the spaces that part of the Product Tank community, like engineering. So please encourage you to look at them as a possible employer as well. We look forward to seeing you all at the next Product Tank, which will be online at Genie in a month. And keep the chat going, share it on LinkedIn, and send us any questions. Thank you very much for today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Louise. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.